Welcome back to We Watch, We Collect, a baseball podcast presented by Believe Podcast Network. I'm here joined by team broadcaster of the Houston Astros, former MLB player and World Series champion, by the way, Geoff Blum. How you doing?
I'm good, and not to get on you too early, but the last name is pronounced Blum, Blum.
Blum. That's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Blum.
no problem. No
Sorry
worries,
about
dude.
that. But pleasure to have you on. Truly appreciate you taking the time to hop on. Really wanted to get you on. I know it's off season for you. It's probably not as busy. I don't know how it goes for major league broadcasters. But I mean, how's your off season been so far?
It's pretty good, and it's good to be on with you. I always appreciate the opportunity to get the voice out there and have some fun talking baseball. And off seasons are pretty good. One thing about being a regional sports commentator for a team is the fact that I know that my season starts on opening day and it ends on the last day of the season. And, it's kind of tough to go through these seasons knowing the Astros are as good as they are. They go to the postseason and everything
Yeah.
gets picked up nationally. So I know when my time is up. So at the end of that season, I get to go watch some playoff baseball until the Astros are done, and then I just go about my way of being a dad, being a husband, and trying to just get in the community and get some speaking events. But there's really no obligation on my end with the ball club other than just to be available when necessary and enjoy my time off.
Sweet, man. And speaking of time off, like what have you been during the time off? Like I know it's winter time. Like what do you usually do during the time off?
I love playing golf. Just catching up with the kids, I've got daughters that play volleyball. It's like going to watch volleyball games. It's planning Christmas vacations, visiting family, that kind of stuff. Just catching up on all those things that you missed during the regular season.
Yeah.
But I'm also, being an ex-athlete, there's always the competitiveness, which I try to take care of on the baseball field, but also the idea of trying to stay in shape. So I'll get in the gym quite a bit, and those are just basically some of the things that I do during the off season.
That's sweet, man. I mean, I know obviously baseball season goes on during summertime. Is there anything that you wish that you can do during the summer but are unable to because of baseball season?
Um, Man, you know what? That's a really good question because you always miss out on the Fourth of July's. You miss out on the summer vacations when everybody's got the time off. We're playing during some of the best weather months in all of the world,
Oh yeah.
and we have to go to work. But at the same time, the payoff is pretty good being an ex big leaguer. But when I retired, we actually had I had some of my summer back to me because I was only working half the time with the Astros. So I had some summertime to go out there and enjoy some of the activities. But, I would say that, Memorial Days and some of those 4th of July's where you really have that communal atmosphere of the block parties or everybody down the street with the fireworks and things like that. But, you make up for it in other ways during the off season.
Oh yeah, I bet. But I not that I don't like love spending time with my family, but I mean, if I had the chance to spend 4th of July at a ballpark, I mean, watch fireworks, I would. I mean, sweet. I mean, I totally would
Yeah.
do
Some of the
that.
best shows on earth are at a
Yeah.
ballpark. Yeah.
And speaking of the ballparks, I mean, you work and get to see games in one of, I think personally, aside from everybody might say about who knows what, but that's whatever. But Minute Maid Park is one best looking ballparks out there. Like it's like got the roof, it's got the train, it's got everything. I mean, it's a beautiful ballpark, man.
No, it's a gorgeous ballpark. It was one of my favorite ballparks to play in as a player, both as a visitor and then eventually as a home player playing for the Houston Astros. And you're right. The one attribute that everybody talks about is obviously the roof, because for 81 games a year, you are going to start that game on time. There's not going to be any delays. You're going to get that game in. And more often than not, you're going to be playing in 72 perfect conditions. And that's what a lot of
Yeah.
players like, is that controlled environment.
Yeah.
But I also sit in one of the greatest seats just behind home plate. As far as all the ballparks we go into, it's one of the better sight lines that we get as far as the booth is concerned. And I hope they never get ideas of turning it into, suite level seating to get more money, because we
Yeah.
love where we're at.
Sweet, man. Yeah, it's aside from one particular manager said about the roof, that's neither here nor there. we'll leave that. We'll leave that where it
That
is.
was a good one.
We'll leave that what it is. I can say that because I'm a Red Sox fan, man. So I bash on them whenever I can. So,
Oh,
but
trust me, we're in the same boat. I appreciate
yeah,
that.
well, so it's that's neither here nor there. You know what, dude? It's not the roof's fault, but whatever. Anyway, so I mean, broadcasting for the Houston Astros, I mean, that's no slouch when it comes to MLB teams. Um, what's what goes into getting ready before a game? I mean, what's do you have a routine? Like, what goes into like once you
Oh
step
yeah.
into those doors? Like, what's it looking like in there?
Yeah, and you know what? I just finished my 10th year in the booth, and it's still one of those things that you kind of go through the process and evolve and try and get better at what you're doing. Because, like you said, we're covering one of the teams that, whether you hate them or love them, is going to be one of the more attractive teams to watch play because
Yeah,
they play so well so often. So, I was with them in 13, 14 when they're losing 100 games, which was good for them and good for me because I was terrible at my job. But gave me a chance to kind of work things out a little bit. And then in 2017, when we brought in Todd Callis, it really changed the dynamic of what Julie and I already had in place. And it added an element of Todd Callis being in there. And he's one of the more prepared play by play guys around the league. And I greatly appreciate that because he can do the data and some of the business like information that goes throughout the course of a broadcast. And I can bring a little more energy, enlightenment, joy, fun, and things like that. And he'll work around that. But we actually do spend a lot of time preparing. We're great friends. We communicate incredibly well. Julia is always getting stories before the game and during BP. She'll relay that information to Todd so that Todd can set her up during the game. And then we'll have a pre production meeting every single day with our producer, and we'll sit down and go over the topics of the day. There'll be emails exchanged, there'll be conversations had, and we'll try and highlight certain things. And that's one of the interesting things is now that the team is as popular as it is, we have that many more elements to fill, but we have to do it with content that we're both comfortable with and we both understand and we're able to talk to. So there is a lot of pre-production, but I'll get to the ballpark for a 7 o'clock game probably around 3:30, and then I'll be on field for BP, get in the booth about maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock, grab a bite to eat, and then game on.
sweet, man. And then speaking on like the dynamic between you two calling games, and like yeah, you said it's one thing to like get the stats ready, get who's starting ready, get also the opposing team, whoever they're playing is ready. But I've always wondered like what it you broadcast for a team, you're obviously you want that team to win. Like I don't care what anybody says. If you're a broadcaster for that team, you want the team to
You
win.
can be a homer.
Yeah, and it's like, but how does it feeling when something crazy happens and you gotta try to keep it somewhat professional, but at the same time you want to yell like, hell yeah, like you want to yell as a fan. Like where do you find that balance between the two?
I'm glad you asked this question because this is probably one of the hardest things for me when I moved from the field to the booth was to react. I wanted to react to everything. I would do what you just said in those first couple of years. I'd be like, "Oh my God, what the hell is he thinking?" kind of thing. And then I learned after a couple of years to really my job is to sit back, watch, and evaluate what's going on. So it's really been this tough dynamic of trying not to be incredibly excited when Jordan hits a 500-foot home run
Oh god.
and letting Todd lose his mind and put his voice onto that. And then I have to come in from behind and kind of put things in context or add my element of enjoyment to it.
Yeah.
But you're right, there is a certain sense of okay, hold on. But if we have a booth cam that shoots us the entire game, and every once in a while we'll replay some of the reactions that we have, and you'll see both of us jump out of our seats. Todd will make the call, but I'm sitting there just like clenched fists, not saying a word, but internally I'm going yes,
Yeah.
something like that. So I understand that I can be a little homerish, but at the same time, it's got to be a little pulled back so that if there is somebody else watching, they understand that we're calling the game on a whole, but there is a certain enthusiasm when these guys play well.
Yeah, because I mean, because every time I'm watching um Major League Baseball games, like obviously MLB Network has the chance to watch it on the home side or the visitor side, and I'll usually take my
Yep.
pick. Like, who do I want to hear? Like, if like let's say for example, if they're playing in Houston, like I want to hear the Houston like call. Like that's just
Mhm.
my preference. Like That's what I always do because I always like to hear. Perfect example is when was it in 2021, the announcer for the Seattle Mariners just went nuts. And he went viral for that. And it shows for the fans. Like, we love hearing that. So, I mean,
Mhm.
if I was a broadcast, I would be completely honest. It would be hard for me to keep my composure, especially broadcasting for a team that I formerly played on or a team that I really like.
Mhm. Well, and you know what too is, 75 to 80% of your viewership is going to be for the hometown team.
Oh yeah,
So if I don't show that enthusiasm or the same excitement that they're feeling, they're going to be disenchanted with me and turn the channel.
yeah,
So, one thing that I've been lucky to have done is played for the Astros. I've been in the community. Todd understands my love for the game overall, and then that added love for the Astros. And then we're in this perfect pocket of golden era Astros baseball where we can let that enthusiasm show through a little bit and then be backed up by how well the team's playing. But I do feel a sense that I have to exude some of that excitement because I want the fan at home to understand that I am with them.
yeah,
I may
of course.
explain it a little bit differently and I may look at it a little bit differently, but the end result, I'm right there next to you sitting on your couch pumping a fist and high-fiving you as we call these games.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I want to talk. There's well, follow up from this. I got a question after this, but I mean, the game against the Seattle Mariners last year when Jordan hit that walk-off bomb. Were you calling that game? You weren't,
No,
right? Because
and I
that was
probably wouldn't have my
broadcast.
voice. Yeah, it was a national broadcast, but
Right.
I probably wouldn't be able to talk to you even to this point right now because I would have lost my mind. He's hit, we've had walk-offs. We saw Jordan hit one off almost the back wall at Minute Maid Park. And I mean, if you go back and listen to those, we're losing it because it's one thing to witness something you've never seen before, like a walk-off in a playoff series like that. But then to have your team do it and have your fans listening, our radio guys do a great job, Steve Sparks and Robert Ford, and they legit lose it because I'll listen to their broadcast sometimes because the national guys try and play it straight,
Yeah.
not show favoritism, although it's always for the other team, I believe.
Yeah.
That's just my
I mean,
opinion.
yeah. No, I feel you.
But they lose their minds, and I mean, that I would have absolutely I probably would have jumped out of the booth and been in the tried to like stage dive onto the fans as Jordan's rounding the bases. That was incredible.
Because I know it led to a whole thing like don't leave him out there. It's a lefty, but put him out there.
Oh
He's
man.
so often against lefties, but I'm like it's not just a lefty. It's your Don Alvarez. Like
Hmm.
he first pitch lets it go. Second pitch bomb. I'm
Hmm.
like I mean, but you just can't say much about it. But I remember I was watching the whole game, and I was like, that was an absolute bomb. I cannot believe it like that. And then of course fans
Well,
go
how
nuts.
often? Yeah, how often have you watched a ball game and whether it be a walk off in a regular season game or in the postseason, like Jordan hit a couple, hit his is, usually the ball's in the air. You're like, okay, this has a chance. There's some drama to it. Hang time. Is a player going to make a play? There was no doubt.
No,
And I don't know if so that's, it kind of took the drama out of it and just led to pure elation on everybody's part. But there's a great angle from behind the batter's circle in the Astros and Alex Bregman's hitting behind Jordan. And Jordan makes contact, and immediately, Alex throws his hands up in the air because he knew it was gone. And that was kind of like you just took the drama out of it and just inserted the excitement immediately. It was incredible.
yeah, it's one of those like because I've watched baseball forever, and a
Yep.
lot of my family members like will be watching a game or they'll be watching a game with me, and I'll hear it, and I'm like, that's gone, and they're like, how do you know? And it's like before the shot even goes to the outfield, and it's
That
like you just
repetition.
know,
Yep.
it's not just the sound, but it's the like I don't know, like even you could tell from the pitchers,
The reaction from the
yeah,
hitter, the pitcher. I mean, it's like
everything.
everything. Yeah.
So branching off of that, um, of course, I'm talking about that one because it was just badass to see him do it, and you didn't call the game. But do you
Yep.
do you have a favorite moment from calling games from the Houston Astros, or multiple that you just can remember?
Oh, man, plenty. and like, we hinted at it earlier. You're a Red Sox fan. I'm an Astro fan. And then one team we both dislike mutually is the New York Yankees. So a lot of
Oh,
the
yeah.
ones I do remember are in those moments because as a broadcaster that you get into if the Astros are playing the Pittsburgh Pirates, you're going to be excited about a walk off, but you're not going to be as excited if it's the Yankees just because
Yeah.
it brings on this whole other aura to it. But the no hitter I remember vividly up in New York last season. The combined no hitter started by Christian Javier because no hitters are interesting because you watch them, and like to a trained eye or somebody who's watched a lot of baseball, you kind of watch how things are going and you say, this has got a chance to be really special. So
Yeah.
you start calling the game with a little more intensity and the buildup, and then you get to the no hitter and you start to explain it and you start to really envelop into the situation and you have a lot of fun with it. So the no hitter last year for the Astros in Yankee Stadium was remarkable. But one in particular was 2 years ago. The Yankees came into town and Jose Altuve hit another walk off, but it was after a 6 run coming back from 6 runs behind
Yeah. I think
in
I
the
remember
ninth
that one.
inning to hit the walk off. And that was the same game that Aaron Judge hit a home run and said, "Oh, it's cold inside." So they were referencing the 2019 home run. I mean, there
Yeah.
was a lot of drama and build up to this thing. And like we talked about earlier, Todd Callis is losing his mind because a 6 run deficit in the ninth with a walk-off home run is ridiculous anywhere. Add the drama of the Yankees being in town, the crowd still being there and losing their minds, and all of the conspiracy theories, everything that was out there about a buzzer, which don't exist. Altuve turns the corner. Todd gets done with his call, and I said, that one gave me a buzz, TK. You just can't resist some of the you can't resist some of those opportunities to, throw a little dig in there, have a
It
little
was
bit of fun with the
that was set up
situation.
perfectly. That would have been perfect. I'm pretty sure. Oh man, because Yankee fans are a different breed in weird ways, and oh man, that was just incredible.
Yeah, every fan base has their quirks, but I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
but there's a certain reaction that they get from you also. So, it's just part of the fun.
and then you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, now you brought up 2 years ago, and then of course, um, our teams faced off in 2021 for the ALCS. There is
Mhm.
one. I just want to get how you feel about it, how you felt about it. I believe it was game 3 in Boston against Houston when Nathan Eovaldi was on the mound, and he I forgot who was at the plate. I think it was Maldonado at the plate,
Mhm.
and he throws a ball, potentially a strike 3, and it was not called. Do you think the series I know you know what I'm talking about. Do you think the series would have played out differently if that was a strike 3 call and we go into the bottom of the ninth tied?
Absolutely. Especially, I mean, and it has everything. So you probably didn't want to hear that, but it has
Yeah,
everything to do with being the home team because that's part of the idea of being the home team is that last at bat.
yeah,
So you look forward to that opportunity to walk a team off and know that you have the opportunity to make the last statement before you walk into the parking lot. And as an Astro fan, you watch the pitch and you're like, and then you realize they didn't call it a strike, and you're like, "Holy cow!"
you're like,
Those
oh,
and
thank God.
yeah, it's relief, and you're like, "Okay, now can we make something happen out of this?" And all of a sudden, base runners, and imagine what it does to the psyche of the pitcher, knowing that you made your pitch, you don't get the call, and you have to make several more after that. That's the hardest part about that. So it's a little frustrating in that sense, but at the same time, in order to win World Series championships, you need little breaks like that along the way.
Yeah,
And maybe that strike not being called a strike was that moment that kind of shifted things in the Astros' direction.
I certainly think we'll branch off this 2021 talk after this, but I mean, it was just the whole because it would have been tied, but instead, I believe they score 7 runs. Jordan, I remember, hits the double off the wall,
Oh,
and 2 runners score, and I'm just it takes the air out. Obviously, we're down in the series, but it's just like we would have been ahead in the series going into Houston ahead, and I'm like, if we would have won that game, who
mhm.
knows what happened? But that's it. That's just
Yeah, and those
baseball.
short series, those things mean a lot, man.
And then leading the reason why I asked that question now, in which we're going into a little bit of rules that are coming into next year and potential. But before we get there, I got one more little question. I know you mentioned you go down to the field for batting practice with the Astros. How is it being down there on the field during BP with those guys? You get to chit chat with some of them.
Yeah. No, one thing, probably, I don't know if it gets a lot of national exposure, but this clubhouse for the Houston Astros is one that, I'll have conversations with guys I've played with. We're all retired. We had our time, and it's now it's their time. We understand that, but at the same time, there's a little bit of envy knowing how fun that clubhouse is, how accepting that clubhouse is. There's no hierarchy. There's no veteran. There's no rookie. It's just a bunch of guys going out
Mhm.
trying to win ball games. And, so there's a little bit of envy in that because, I always sound old, back in our day,
Yeah,
there was a certain pecking order, and you had to earn the trust of the veterans. In this clubhouse, you just roll in and you play. And being down around those guys, I've gotten a really good sense of who they are as ball players, who they are as workers. They work extremely hard, and they're incredibly personable too. So it's been lucky for me to be able to go down there and pick their brains because the game is evolving so quickly. The analytics, the swing thoughts, the pitching mechanics. There's so many things that have evolved since I even played that I'm trying to keep up with. And those guys are very open about giving me information, helping me understand. And at the same time, I'll roll down there and Jose Altuve, who I would love to sit and talk hitting for hours on end if I could, I'll roll down there and go, "Hey, Jose, how's it going today?" And he's like, "Good." And he'll go, "How are your daughters?" It's
sweet,
like
sweet.
"Wait a minute, you're paying attention to this?" So it's like it's this personal aspect that these guys have brought on, and eventually it turns into baseball talk, obviously. But at
Yeah,
the same time, I can roll down and go, "Alex, how's your son Knox doing? What happened today?" And we start telling diaper stories. It's just that makes it kind of fun and breaks up the monotony of a regular season. But these guys are great, and they always do a very good job of helping me understand what they're trying to do on the field so that I can be better at my job.
yeah, of course. I mean, because I've only been on batting practice or watched batting practice for the Albuquerque Isotopes, and it's just badass. Like they're there, they're
Yeah.
chit chatting behind behind the net, and they're just chit chatting about who knows what. And then I see them step up, and it's just effortless. Boom, home run. Boom, right center
Mhm.
gap, and
Isn't
it's
it
like
crazy?
it just blows my mind. But then they out of the box, and then they're right back to talking about Fortnite or something. It's like what? How are you
Exactly,
doing
yeah.
that shit? Like what? That's just badass.
Yeah, it's a different breed, yeah. Yeah, you can make fun of Yordan all you want, but the second he gets in the cage, you better plug your ears because it's gonna
Yeah,
get loud real quick. It's amazing how they can flip that switch.
it is so crazy, man. Um, Next thing I want to get into is I had mentioned before we started recording just to get a little clarify on it, but last year, early April, don't remember the date, but early April, you got caught on a hot mic moment that for most people will think, oh, what was it? What was said? Did he get canceled? It's like, no, it was a quite opposite, which was, I don't know if you want to explain the story, probably explain the story a lot better than I can, but, but what was that hot mic moment that happened last year?
Yeah, from ballpark to ballpark we go to, at our home ballpark, we have a TV truck, we have a crew. I know everybody on there and I know how they work. When you go to different cities, you get different crews. The audio guy is going to be different. Some places leave our mics open, some don't. I know in spring training, our mics are hot the entire time and they actually feed it into the clubhouse. So I've learned really early to be very cautious about what I say.
Hmm.
So, yeah, if Joe Bag of Donuts from the minor league side comes over and gives up 3 bombs in an inning and we go to break and I'm like, "Psh, man, this guy stinks," it's gonna be in the clubhouse. So I've gotta be careful with that. So you have an idea that you're being heard, and I know that we're always being heard inside the truck throughout the course of the game. So, you know, I have a tendency to have baseball mouth quite a bit during the game in breaks. Um, which means I'll cuss every once in a while, but it won't
Yeah.
be, I'll be like, why did this guy do that? Man, I wish this would have happened. Oh, no. Or yell at my producer. I'll tell him to shut up and get out of my ear. Let me call the game kind of thing. There's just fun stuff like that. But Seattle, it was a little bit different. We had our headsets on, our mics were hot. I was talking to TK, and it just so happened that we got a new sponsor, and it was the Crawford. It was Carbach Brewing who makes the Crawford Bach beer,
Right.
and they wanted to come in and become a sponsor for the bullpen moves that we're making. And there was a little bit of miscommunication between production and sponsor on when they wanted us to say, you know, brought to you by Crawford Bach.
Right.
So we were going to break on a pitching change. And my producer says in my ear, he says, "Hey, we're going to break. Give a shout out to Crawford Bach as you announce the change in the bullpen." So I say, "Hey, this call to the bullpen is brought to you by Crawford Bach. We'll get back to it after the break." We go to break. Our stage manager gives me another read for Crawford Bach. And TK goes, "Man, another Crawford Bach read out of the break?" And I said, "TK," it's like sarcastically, I said, "TK, we're going to Crawford Bach the shit out of this thing." Just kind of like, we're just going to, they tell us to read it, we're going to read it. We're going to just pound this thing home. And that's what got caught. And that's what got fired out there. So we call the inning, and my phone is going bonkers. I'm getting texts, I'm getting Twitter alerts, I'm getting Instagram. I'm like, what in the heck just happened, man? I'm like, I'm trying to, and one of my broadcast partners from back in Houston is like, "Man, you just got popped on a hot mic." And I was like, I'm trying to think. I'm going, Justin Verlander pitched that day. I'm going, couldn't have said anything about Justin. He pitched too good.
Like, what did I say?
And somebody didn't get it. I'm like, did I say something about Altuve, Bregman, Pena? I'm like, man, I'm racking my brain. I get on my talk back and I go, "Hey, Carl," our producer's name's Carl. I go, "Carl, did I say anything stupid again?" And he's like,
Again.
"No, we didn't have anything." Yeah, again, usually I say it on air, but so we get done, and I'm in between innings. I'm pulling it up, and it's like hot mic moment. Awful announcing puts it out there. All these, everybody's like, "Oh, Blum's gonna get canceled." I'm like, dude, what did I do? And lo and behold, I lucked out, man. It just said Crawford Bach the shit out of it. Next thing I know, I'm getting a text from the people I know at Carbach Brewing. I'm getting a text from a T-shirt company, and they're like, they want to collab. They want to put on a T-shirt. I'm like, go ahead, man. What do I care?
Yeah.
So it totally backfired on whoever was trying to burn me, and ended up being this viral moment that, all of my street cred went up amazingly
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought is like, I mean, if you want fans to be in touch with your announcers, like that's how you want it to happen unintentionally. Where it's like,
There
all
you
right,
go. Yeah.
now I'm gonna go get this beer wherever it's sold, and I'm gonna go Crawford Bach the shit out of it. I'm
Just
gonna
start
go
chugging and
drink it.
pounding. Let's
Like
go.
exactly. So now it perfect. Like if I was the spokesperson or the representative for Crawford Bach, I'd be like, you know what? I don't care what he said. I love that. Like give us more
Yeah.
of it.
Lifetime contract, free beer. Let's go.
Yeah. And it goes to show because I mean, you're part of the fans, like, because there's year before in 2021, there's a photo of you in the stands chugging down a beer. Like, so I mean, you can't blame the guy. Like, leave him alone.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, who knew, man? I mean, those two moments just kind of go hand in hand. And you're right. Yeah, I got caught on the big screen during a playoff game, and I had a beer in my hand, and I was like, "Well, here we go."
Hell yeah.
And yeah, I've been very fortunate that it's kind of endeared me to the Astro fan base with some of my maybe unorthodox approach to broadcasting.
I mean, we need more of it because that's how you get fans and all of them all together. And it's like he's one of the boys. Like,
Imagine how much fun that would be if you could actually have moments like that and just kind of like chat it up in that sense. I mean, there's a certain professional aspect,
yeah,
but if you could do not the Manning cast, but if you could do just something a little more spicy, I bet you'd get a
yeah.
lot of eyes on it.
I mean, because the Manning cast is a great thing. Like they're like like recently, Peyton
Hmm.
Manning is like getting up off this seat because of the missed field goals, and he's like all
The
upset
kicker.
about it. And it's like, oh, like don't be unprofessional. And Peyton Manning's like, no, he's being a fan. Like all the fans would do
Yeah.
that. I would do that. And it's like, yeah,
But
get up off your
there's a
seat.
certain purity to that you'd enjoy. Yeah. Cause we're all having the reaction, whether you like the team or not. You're like, holy, you
Yeah,
know,
because I don't know. Because I mean, the K Rod tried it. It was okay. I mean, not many people have a soft spot for A Rod in the first place because
yeah.
he doesn't seem like a guy's guy type of guy, if that makes sense. So,
Mhm.
but I mean, any other broadcast announcers out there, put them in a room of 3 of them from different teams that have no dog in the fight on a playoff game
Oh,
and just let them have at it. Like, put a camera on each
that would
all
be
3 of
great.
them and just let them go at it. Put them some Crawford Bach in
Mhm.
there, and who knows what could happen. Who
That would be
knows?
even better. Yeah, that'd be broadcasting enhancement.
Oh, oh, man, well, that's good hearing about your, broadcast, experience with the Houston Astros, and, I wanna get into a little bit more solely baseball talk, which obviously next
Mhm,
year, well, not next year, this year, this season, starting pretty soon, we've got about roughly 2 months until pitchers and catchers report, or no,
mhm.
actually less than a month.
I would
You're,
say it's coming up less, right?
yep,
Jeez,
yeah,
it's coming up
February
quick.
15th, I believe it is, and we got some new rules coming into MLB. We have the pitch clock, we have the shift ban, and then a potential rule coming in 2024 with the robot umpires. I kind of want to pick your brain as an announcer who's watching these games, especially in a space where I don't think I guess you could tell me if I'm wrong, but in a time standpoint, you're not really worried about the length of a game. Which first one
Mhm.
I want to get into is the pitch clock, the whole 30 seconds between hitters, 20 seconds, no, it's 15 seconds between pitches with no runners on, and then 20 seconds with runners on. So I want kind of
Mm.
want to get your take on how you're feeling about the pitch clock coming in for this season.
I actually appreciate the way you set that up because time of game, our broadcasts and our production meetings that we have are built around the idea that we're going to be there for at least 3 hours.
Yeah.
So we have certain elements and a certain pace to the game that we're accustomed to. Granted, you're going to have some of those games are going to be quick, some are going to be longer, but the idea is that I will have enough time to get my elements in, and I'll even have time to, I'll have some notes on the side, if I ever played against this ball club and some of the moments that we had, so I can tell stories and fill time when things do get slow, or if it's a blowout, or things just aren't going, at the rate that we want them to be. I can interject a little bit and get a little more vocal, and my first thought was what you were talking about is that when you start to condense that time, and like they said, the results of the data said that they're going to shave about a half an hour off a game.
Hmm.
So if you go from 3:15 to 2:45, that's 30 minutes of airtime that we've got to shut down and try and figure out how to compress our game.
Right.
And that's where my first thought was is like, wow. Not, I mean, I already knew I had to be concise in some of my comments and analysis. Now it's going to be exaggerated. So the idea is how do I become more efficient in what I say and what I comment on? Now you get on the field, and I'm even more curious as a fan is how are these guys going to react? Because you're going to have young players who've played under this system maybe in the last year or year and a half.
Yeah.
So they have a good idea of acclimating. But you're going to have, I mean, take the New York Mets
Hmm.
for instance. You got back-to-back nights of Max Scherzer going and then Justin Verlander. How are those guys going to react? Because there's a certain rhyme and rhythm to what they're doing to be successful, and now you're compressing that. How are they going to react? So I'm curious to see how pitchers develop their ability to get on the mound quickly. Hitters, I think, have to be in the box within 8 to 10 seconds, which is going to be really interesting. Or is that going to limit, walk-up songs and, how many times a guy adjusts his batting gloves? I want to see some of that stuff. It's part of the personality,
Yeah.
and I think one thing that should be talked about is I think and you're probably going to hint at it as we go through these rules, is the catching position is going to change dramatically because now you have to think faster than the game. And this game can already speed up on you. But if, we're lucky to have Martin Maldonado down here in Houston. He does his homework, he prepares incredibly well. He handles pitchers incredibly well as far as the psychology and some of the moods they can be in. But as soon as that pitch is released and whatever happens at the plate, he's immediately got to start thinking about that next pitch because he only has 15 to 20 seconds to figure out how they want to get this hitter out. That's where I
Yeah.
think some of the strategy of this game is going to be very interesting as far as trying to get to that next pitch. Because what if he has an idea of the pitch he wants to throw, but the pitcher doesn't like it? Then you start shaking. Then you step off once, you step off twice, you pick over once. All of a sudden you're trying to figure out ways to delay and make sure you're on the same page. It's going to be really interesting how that clock affects players.
I mean, because I've seen it already kind of firsthand because I currently work for the Albuquerque Isotopes AAA, and
Oh,
they
nice.
they implemented the pitch clock last year,
Mhm.
and we'll get into it a little bit later, but the robot umpires as well, the automatic ball and strike zone. And so here's my thing when it comes to the pitch clock as a fan. Also, like I'm not a
Mhm.
player by any means or
I was
anything
gonna
like
ask
that.
you about that. How'd you like it as a fan?
So as a fan, I mean it here's my bottom line is I for one as a fan don't care how long the game goes. That's just my personal preference. I don't care how long it goes. Like
Yeah, you and me
it,
both.
I don't care if it's a pitcher's duel and it lasts 2 hours 15 minutes, or if it's a hit parade and it lasts 3.5 hours to four. Like I don't care. Like that's just my I love baseball that way. And the
Mhm.
downfall, not the downfall, but like the kind of contradictory where I see this pitch clock coming from is okay, it does it well, it's proven already. It does shave 25 minutes to 30 minutes off, but you have those innings that last 25 to 30 minutes. So where does that coming from? Like it's you're shaving off 30, but then you're getting the 30 back because some at bats can go on for 12 pitches and just pitchers just can't get
That's a
out
good
of them.
point.
I mean, bases are loaded
Mhm.
with no outs. Who knows how long it take to get three? Like I'm like, I see where they're coming from with the pitch clock. It kind of speed up the game, but you can't speed up like those aspects if that makes sense. Like you can't predict whether
Yeah, you
inning
can't
number
speed up the
4.
fact that this guy's hanging every curveball and he's getting hammered,
Yeah, like you can't
or
do
he's
that.
not throwing strikes,
Exactly.
and you can't the pitch clock isn't going to control every 3-2 count.
Right.
These hitters are good, the pitchers are very good. There's still gonna be that element that takes over in the game.
And like they mentioned the what is it? 15 seconds with no runners on and then 20 seconds with runners on. If a guy is fouling off 4 pitches, that's 2 4 that's a minute there. A minute might not seem like a lot, Chris, whatever, but it adds up. I mean,
Yeah.
that might not be the only at bat that lasts 4 pitches fouled off. Like there might be more at bats throughout the whole game. So it's kind of I see what they're trying to do. Ultimately, I don't think the pitch clock will attract fans if that's what they're trying to do. Like, oh, this game's shorter. Like, no, if they're not a baseball fan,
Mhm.
you're not going to gain fans just because you shaved off 25 minutes. That's just my personal opinion.
No, but
Uh,
it goes
Go
to
ahead.
what you're talking about being a traditionalist. Why are you showing up to a football game? Why are you showing up to an NBA or NHL game? Because you love the sport or you love the team. You want
Yeah.
to see them play. So if you show up to a ball game, you're going because you love the game of baseball. It's not because you want to show up, get your fix, and then get home as soon as you can to go to bed. I don't know.
Yeah. And that's just the whole thing. Cause I mean, like a lot of the people I work with, like obviously we're there in the clubhouse, and there's some people that work there at Istos Park that they want the game to finish. Like they want to hurry up so they can get things done, what have you. They want to go home. Like I get that if you work there, but I mean, they're doing it to cater to the fan base, and it's kind of like I don't know if I don't think fans would care if a game is cut down by 25 minutes or even more potentially.
Yeah, we're gonna find out real quick, aren't we? It's gonna That's why spring training, I think, is gonna be such a fascinating little, petri dish of experiments to see
Yeah,
how this thing goes.
because now I'm always thinking it's like because I've seen it in the minors too with some of the isotopes pitchers is they have a little trick now where I don't know if major league players will do it, but in order to instead of calling time and things like that, they'll ask for a ball, like for another ball, and that'll kind of
Ah.
be like a little 10 seconds, a little wait time, catch my breath, whatever, recomposure.
Mhm.
They'll ask for another ball. If they don't like it, ask for another one. They can't. Pitch
Yeah,
clock is not for
I
that.
like it.
So I was like, you know what? They'll find their way around it because I mean, I'm a pitcher guy. I like pitcher. I cater to pitchers a lot. I love watching pitchers pitch, and then with pitch
Mhm.
clock, you if I'd be I pray for the umpire that's got to tell Max Scherzer to hurry up. Like, it, good luck. Like,
Good
good luck,
luck. Yeah,
dude.
I'm with you.
Good luck because if I was a home plate umpire, I ain't telling that guy nothing. Like, good luck. Let him do it.
I'm
I,
like,
I
"Bring
don't
it when
see
you're
a
ready."
pitch clock with that guy because that's for one thing.
Yeah.
Good luck with that dude because he's already intense as it is.
I say I don't want any more less
No.
interaction, the better.
Yeah. So the next rule that's coming into next I keep saying next year to this season is the shift ban, which fans have wanted it. Some fans have didn't want it. Players want it. Some players don't want it. What's your whole take on the shift ban?
This one's tough because I work for a team that is hyper analytical, and they take a lot of pride in being able to put their infielders where they want them to be, because if you can increase the number of outs you get to, you're going to increase your win probability, and that's the whole idea behind the shift analytics. And now you're removing that. And I know that as a hitter, I'm going to be stoked because if I'm a left-handed hitter, if I'm just to take a couple of guys for example from the Astros, Kyle Tucker and Yordan Alvarez. These are heavy power guys. They're production guys. They also know how to hit. They take a lot of pitches. They take their walks. They hit 275 to 300 while doing it. And now you're opening up an entire right side of the field for these guys.
Forget
I
it.
think that their eyes, when they get to the plate, their eyes are going to look like beach balls because they're going to recognize there's nobody playing shallow right field. There's going to be a traditional right fielder. There's only going to be a first baseman and second baseman trying to knock my stuff down. And on the right side, I'm going to be elated about that. There's certain right-handed hitters that they get shifted a lot, but they don't have to have that guy playing shallow outfield.
Hmm.
But it amazes me that they went as drastic as they did talking about Major League Baseball by saying, stay on the infield, two guys on each side. I thought for sure they were just going to say, keep your feet on the dirt, move wherever you want, because that would
Right.
still bring in some of the data that you need to go out there and win ball games. And I think that's where maybe pitchers and defensive players are like, man, this sucks. Because I really liked our ability to knock down baseballs and cover ground because we did such a good job on the analytic number to get these outs. Now you're going to force a lot of these teams, and maybe they start to draft a little bit differently too, or maybe they pick their second baseman or their shortstop a little bit differently because you need hyper athletic guys now that have range. Before you could just put them in a position to make plays.
Because now, like, I don't know if anybody's really thought of this before, but with the shift ban, lefty hitters potentially turn into righty hitters. Now it's like,
Hmm.
do we even what if I'm in the draft room? This guy's a shortstop. Well, he's if he plays second base, he's a shortstop. Or this guy's a second baseman. Well, if you're going to play second base, you're a shortstop. It's kind of like now they're.
Hmm.
It's almost like second base is gone now. Now it's just a shortstop
Yeah.
in the gap.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's going to be very interesting. And the one thing that I think everybody needs to understand too, because I love how people throw out the Joey Gallos and some of these other left-handed hitters, the
Right.
Cody Bellingers, oh, they're going to be that much better. You know what? They are going to get a couple more hits that are going to sneak through the infield. But guess what? All these rules that we're talking about don't increase contact. And if you're not a contact guy,
Right.
you're still not going to make contact because pitchers continue to get better and better. It just means that the balls that you are putting in play maybe have a little bit better chance of becoming a hit. But at the same time, you still got to make a ton of contact. And that's why I think it's really going to benefit guys like, uh, you know, I wish I could expand a little bit more. Maybe in midseason I could, but the Tuckers and Alvarez's, those guys that are very good hitters with power are going to get that much better, I think.
I mean, yeah, because I mean, I was never a fan. Well, no, I would say as a fan, I was like 50-50 the whole shift thing. I didn't care the much for the second baseman being on the grass.
Hmm.
I guess when it comes to I'm all for the like keep your feet or keep your toes on the dirt. Like I guess
Yeah.
how as far as I would go. Keep your toes on the dirt. All right, I could see that. Like be as far back on the dirt as you want. But I didn't really care for that whole being out there in shallow right field, right field, almost like a rover in
Hmm.
slow pitch softball. Like it was a little weird.
Yeah.
Like it's a little goofy. So I mean, ultimately we're only gonna know how it pans out when the numbers come out at the end of the season. And of course, everyone is gonna
Hmm.
look at Joey Gallo's numbers. Like you brought him up. If he doesn't hit over what he hit in the past 3 years, then the shift ban doesn't work. That's what everyone's gonna say. Like he didn't take advantage of it. It
Yeah.
doesn't work. But then it's one player, like you say. It's just one guy. Like you could beat the shift, but you can't beat contact. I guess. if what I'm trying to say. Like,
No.
if you can't hit it,
Yeah,
then
no, that
oh well.
I truly believe in that, yeah.
So we'll see what the shift ban comes in. And after we talk about all these rules, I had this take way before, not way before, but like when the rules were barely starting to come out. But the last potential rule that we might get in 2024, potentially, we'll see if it happens, is the automatic
Mhm,
ball and strike zone. I've seen it in the minor leagues. Fans are half and half about it. Players are half and half about it. But if you've seen the strike zone, it almost looks like the strike zone for Major League just turned sideways. They extended it on the left and
okay,
right side and they shortened it top to bottom. So it's a little weird how they did it. So I don't know if
okay,
that's going to happen in Major League Baseball, but I can tell you that the hitters in the minor leagues didn't like the zone. The pitchers
mhm,
liked the zone, but a lot of the pitchers that we had that were breaking ball pitchers, they didn't like it because they pitched down a lot. So they didn't like the shortening of the
mhm.
top and bottom. So I'm like rambling on, but what's
No, you're good.
your take when it comes to the whole automatic ball and strike zone, the robot umpires, if you will?
I'm fascinated by it. I mean, it's amazing the technology, and I'm really curious, like you were trying to, explain. I'm curious what the zone is actually going to look like
Hmm.
because is it if you catch a seam on the outside edge, that's still, that baseball's still going to be a good 2 inches off the outside corner to my eye. But if a seam catches that outside corner, are they going to give that pitch? How much of the baseball has to be on the plate? And you talked about north and south, some of the zone. I mean, if you did it purely on home plate, the way that the plate is shaped, you could rip a breaking ball on the back half of the plate and catch that back edge. So is that something that's going to count? But it'll cross at my neck.
Yeah.
I saw a video of guys throwing curveballs that are down in the zone, catching a part of it, and the catcher's blocking it. So how are they going to alter? How are they going to adjust to that? Because guys are so good, move the ball so well. How are they going to adjust to that? Um, but as a player, there's a certain inherent issue by having a person, a human being calling a ball and strike. And that's always been part of the game. Part of the scouting reports, even when I was playing, were so and so is behind the plate. Be ready to swing because he's got a big zone, or this guy's got a tight zone. Be a little more, be a
Hmm.
little more concise on your edges. And even for pitchers, oh, this guy loves the high strike. I'm going to throw high strikes all day long. So you alter and try and work the game in that sense. So you take that element away. And, we spoke about catchers earlier,
Hmm.
having to be mentally tough enough to call pitches. How about if you take that strike zone and just make it permanent? Why do I need to frame? Why does my catcher need to frame any pitches?
Exactly.
Why do I have to talk to the home plate umpire? That's a lost art now. If you can't massage the home plate umpire, go, man, you really shined your shoes nice today. They look great. Whap, strike. Like, man, the zone, looks as good as your chest protector does. Stuff like that, where you're going to lose some of that human element, and it's just going to be very, I don't want to say it's just going to be very, it's going to be like a doctor's office. It's just going to be very clinical and very,
Right.
very dry and cold. And, that you're just going to get ball strike, not, and there's going to be no argument. There's no personality. You're taking a lot of personality out of the game with that automated zone. And I understand you're trying to keep the integrity of it, but these guys, these young umpires coming up are very good at what they're doing. And I want to make sure that we talk about these rules and talk about the fact that 10 umpires retired this offseason. And I
A
think a
lot.
lot of the reason why is because of these rules changes and where the game's headed, like you're talking about with the automated zone.
That's what a lot of people are not really talking about is that with all these, well,
Yeah, you're
mainly the
right.
automatic strike zone and all these rules, umpires are like they're kind of like the purist of umpires. I know some fans would call themselves purists, but it's like, oh, I don't want to be a part of this game where my own personal thing doesn't matter. Like, of course, we have the Angel Hernandez's out there, but where umpires are like,
Yeah, he was
if a
not one that
pitch,
retired.
yeah, no, but he's like one of those guys where he's like not a lot of fans like him, or majority don't like him because of
Mhm.
his zone. But it's like these umpires are retiring because they don't want to deal with that. They don't want to
You're right.
like,
I feel the same
yeah, I
way.
get, yeah, and it's like, and the other thing about the zone, like you mentioned, the size of it. Altuve is this tall, Aaron Judge is this big. Where's their zone? Like a high
Yeah,
fastball to Judge is neck high to Altuve. I mean, like
there's
it's
no
so
doubt
weird.
about it.
It's
Yeah.
so weird, and we'll see how it goes in because in the minors, that zone is permanent. That's exactly what it was. Whether
Oh, no
no,
kidding.
no kidding, it matter no matter the height of the guy, that zone was the
Interesting.
same. So it didn't change. Um, as far as I know, it did not change. There was a poster
Mhm.
in the dugout where it shows two different zones, and it's funny because the batters they used were Altuve and Judge. So, but as
One extreme to the next.
yeah, as far as I know, the zone stayed the same throughout the whole thing. And the part that I did find interesting is toward the end of the season last year, which I think it was great. Like this is the thing I found was great. It got a lot of fans engaged. It made even the players stare up at the jumbotron. Is that after a pitch was thrown, you could look up at the jumbotron and you see the strike zone, and it shows you where the ball landed. Every fan looked
Oh,
up
wow.
there, oh, it was a call strike, and then they're looking up, was it a strike? Oh yeah, 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 it was. Like, so I thought that was great. Like, I love that they showed that. So
Mhm.
we'll see if MLB does that. I hope they do because it'll get a lot more fans. It's kind of like it would be kind of like an NFL thing, like where was his feet in bounds? Like, let's look up at the thing, and then you hear the oohs and ahs. Like,
Mhm.
was that a strike? Oh, that was paint down in the corner. It's like ooh ah. Like, I think we'll be able to see that. So I think doing that,
Yeah.
I think would be great. But
Well, how about I would imagine if you're watching in the stands like you said you are, you watch the pitch, you see where it's caught, and you're like, "Oh, that's a strike," and then you look up and confirm it, or
yeah,
say, "Wow, that was a really good pitch," but it wasn't a strike, you know. So I do get that.
yeah, and then the other thing where I don't think they're bringing it in because it kind of would defeat the purpose of the automatic balls and strikes. But in winter ball, or I believe in low A ball, they're doing the challenge pitches, and of course that whole
Mhm.
viral video with Jason Dominguez like tapping his helmet to challenge that. And I personally don't think that should be a thing as a fan. If they do automatic
Mhm.
ball and strikes, fine. But if they keep the human element, like that's the part of makes baseball fans. We love arguing at the umpire, like through our TV screen. Like we love uh, and I mentioned to it earlier from the beginning of this episode, the whole Nathan Evaldi called drop or not called third
Yeah.
strike. That's the game. Like
He would have been ripping his head off trying to get
yeah,
that
I
one.
mean, I would have been in my chair like this, like Cora, look at that. And
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a good equalizer for fans that we all love bashing the umpire when he makes a bad call. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys have probably talked about it in the booth, like, oh man, like you're
Oh,
really
yeah.
gonna give that to him to just throw it again and watch him rip in. It's like, oh man, but I like that little part of the game where we can all be mad at one thing, even though we're all fans of
Yeah,
different
and have the
teams.
conversation too.
Yeah, like we're having earlier when we were talking about that strike, because one little ball call or strike call changed the whole dynamic of not just the playoff, but the season too. So,
Yep, it can.
but I'm really curious to see how these um, new rules will get implemented for Major League Baseball. I mean, I'm gonna watch regardless. We'll see if it ends up changing. I know there's another rule that's coming in, but I didn't really want to
Mhm.
touch on it too much because it's like didn't really like it was like a kind of rule, but again, it was brought into the minor leagues, and I've seen the bases, but they made them bigger. I believe a inch and a
Yep.
half on each side. They do look bigger, like they look so much bigger, and of course they're bringing them in for stolen bases and things like that. But that was just like a, I don't think many people would notice that rule, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, like you said, it's interesting to hear you say it because I haven't seen it physically on a field yet. I think it's more aesthetically what it's gonna look like to the eye. It's gonna look massive, I would
Yeah,
imagine, compared to the old base, and you're right, you get 3 inches closer to second base. You're 3 inches closer to that bang bang play at first base when you're running it out trying to get that base hit, and, it's just interesting the extent that MLB will go to, say, safety by expanding the base and eliminating collisions at first base. I know they happen, they're unfortunate, but they don't have for me, I don't think the data's there to say that we need to do this, but I know they're trying to bring the speed aspect into it because, having followed the Astros and talked to enough people around the game, the stolen base has gone by the wayside because everything's about, hitting 3-run home runs. So I'm kind of curious too if, is it going to change the mentality of the base runner to say, okay, now I'm going to take an extra chance here because I know they're on a pitch clock. He's picked over twice and my base is bigger, so let's go. Maybe
Right.
that does and adds a little more action or excitement to the game, which would be great. But at the same time, I'm with you. I'm like, it's a bigger base. So what?
Yeah, because I mean, it. I got. If I mean, if MLB really wanted to grasp the whole safety running down the line at first base, then add an orange base on the side like softball. I mean,
Yeah.
if you really want to go that route, just put it on the
Yeah.
side. I mean, and
Hmm.
then just
I
leave
hear
it at
you.
that. But we'll see what happens with those bases. To me, they do look bigger, but I guess if you really want to get down to like the nitty and gritty numbers of it, like if the base is like that much further, like their fingers are that much closer, it's like, oh, that's too minute for me as a fan, I guess, to make
Yeah.
it a big difference for stolen bases anyway. Like, mm,
Guys that steal bases are going to steal bases. Guys that don't get infield hits are not going to get infield hits. I mean,
right.
let's be
Yeah.
honest.
All these rules aside, we'll see how many players actually change their game for the rules, which I personally think they shouldn't do, in my opinion. Like,
Hmm.
don't
Yeah.
switch your game out just because of these certain rules. So we'll see how it all pans out. But I'm really curious about is just the pitch clock one with the pitchers and how they're going to
Yeah.
handle it because I know they're very anal about a lot of things, and we'll see how that turns out. But
I agree with you.
it was great chit chatting about the rules coming in. I got a last couple of questions before I let you go. I don't want to take up too much of your time here, but I have a simple question. I would I want two parts of this. So one side bias, the other side non-bias, which I know would be kind of hard, but in the next, I'm gonna throw out a number here. 5 years or less. Do the Astros have competition?
Yes. I do believe that, and I'm not saying that just because this offseason's been absolutely bonkers with Steve Cohen throwing money all over the place,
No.
but I think that teams are now, after watching what the Astros have been able to do since 2012 to 2023, I think that now there's not a it's not a defined program or process, but there's definitely a maybe a really loose outline of what you could possibly do. And I think a lot of organizations are starting to look at their draft a little more seriously. I think they're looking at their development a little more seriously. And I think they're looking at identity. What kind of team do they want to be? Do they want to be that high power team and high on base percentage? How do I do that? And once you figure out that's who you want to be, the way you do that is draft those guys that you feel fit that program, develop them in a way that fits that program, and then bring in free agents who have already proven themselves to be, in that kind of program. So I think that there is going to be competition, and of course, as well as I do, this whole cycle of good and bad. You try and maximize it as long as you can, and the Astros are doing a very good job of that right now. But the reality of it is that those generational type teams come around every once in a while, not all the time. So it's going to be a combination of teams getting very good, and it's going to be a combination of the Astros just getting older and maybe losing some of that talent, and then having those other teams get that much better. So I do think that there are going to be a lot of teams competing and playing much better baseball in years to come.
And see, and then to like kind of piggyback on that is I kind of have a theory of how I feel other teams would like to do it. They would like to do it the Astros way. A lot of teams are kind of doing it the Dodger way of spending money, which it kind of
True.
you bring up 2020 all you want, that whole thing, but I mean the way their Dodgers are kind of doing it hasn't really been working in their favor. But a lot of people want to
You're
do it
right.
the Astros way. But my thing is when it comes to the way the Astros are doing it, and I'll bring up one player or two players actually. Not a lot of teams will give up their star shortstop to gamble on a rookie shortstop, hoping that he does what Jeremy Pena did because what he did was incredible. Jeremy Pena is that
Yeah.
dude now. not a lot of teams will give up their Carlos Correas to have a I mean, to be completely honest, I wasn't familiar with Jeremy Pena before. No one was. And it's like now he's put
Mhm.
himself on the map now. Like Carlos Correa, who not a lot of teams are going to do that or willing to do that.
No, it's dangerous because think about it from an organizational standpoint. What are you doing to your team? What are you doing to your fan base? Think about the message it sends to the fan base too. When you're like, we're not going to pay Carlos. You're like, what? I grew up
Right.
with him. He's my favorite player. This guy got us to the World Series. He's the best. Postseason numbers are a joke. And I've got 6 of his jerseys at home. You have to think about those kinds of things. But you could go back even further to Albert Pujols signing in Los Angeles.
Hmm.
The Cardinals were like, this is our marquee cornerstone of our organization. But at this point, with the money, we're going to take a chance and move on.
Right.
And it worked out for them. Albert did what Albert did. But the Astros in the last, man, 4 or 5 years, they have lost George Springer, Carlos Correa, Garrett Cole. This year they're losing Justin Verlander, Zach Greinke. I mean, these are marquee perennial all-stars that they've moved on from, yet they've been to 6 straight American League Championship Series. So there is something in the sauce that says, we're going to take a chance on this guy because we know he can play the position, but we've also got a bolstered lineup that will overshadow his inefficiencies or his negatives.
Right.
And I think that's where they're kind of in that luxurious spot of saying, yeah, we'll let that guy go because we've gotten 8 other guys to surround this one guy with. It's really fascinating that they've been able to do that. And then you start talking about, as a businessman, how much money have you saved not signing some of those guys
A
back?
lot. I mean, to be quite honest, probably shit, a lot of money
I was gonna
because
say almost half a million or half
yeah,
a billion or
I
something
was
like
even
that.
thinking that too, 500 million, because Garrett Cole got what he got, and then George,
Yeah, 2 guys with 250, 300 plus million
yep,
dollar contracts.
is crazy. And then, um, like on the pitching side of it, yeah, you lose Verlander, or you lost Cole first, and then you lost Verlander, but then you like that starting. I don't know what the starting uh, five is for the
The
Astros yet,
rotation.
but I mean,
Yeah.
Framber Valdez, like that dude is like crazy to me. Like that, oh my gosh, like those guys are still scary, and they're all pitching in the World Baseball Classic too. Like, forget it. I mean,
They've got postseason experience. They're pitching on the national stage with the world or global stage with the World Baseball Classic for their countries that are stacked. And then, like you said, though, it's amazing to me because you start to prep every year as a broadcaster, looking at rosters,
right,
and you sit there and you're like, you rattled off. You go Framber Valdez to Lance McCullers Jr. to Christian
Christian
Javier, and
Javier.
then you have decisions, but yeah, which is there's people saying that he's going to be next year's Cy Young somehow, which would be absolutely freaking incredible. But then you go, okay, do I go Jose Urquidy, Luis Garcia, or Hunter Brown? You have a legit 6-man rotation, and when you say that out loud, you go, wow, we've got a chance. And then you realize we just let Justin Verlander go, yet we still have a chance. It's unbelievable to think about.
And the one thing that surprises me is, for I guess the Houston fan base, of what I've seen, is that I don't know what it is, but Houston fans were okay with seeing all these guys go. Like
Yeah, how do
okay,
you,
like we're still
that's what
gonna
I mean.
be
The fan
good.
base,
Like they're just flexing on
how?
everybody. Like we're still good. We just won. Like, all right, take Correa for all we care. Like we got a ALCS MVP, World Series MVP, and almost Rookie of the Year, Jeremy Pena. Like, all right, not everybody is
Well,
as lucky.
yeah.
But I mean, it's
Well, that's
incredible
what's
though.
crazy. Yeah, well, that's what's crazy. I talk about prepping for every year, and myself, Todd Callis, Julia Morales will sit there. We'll get to spring training, and we're like, oh man, how are we going to sell? How are we going to explain Jeremy Pena is the new shortstop because Carlos wanted too much money after being such a phenomenal player for
It's like
years?
you don't have to.
So you start to, but you get to the point where you're
Yeah,
like, dude, I don't have to say anybody's replacing anybody. This is the guy.
yeah,
Jeremy. We just say Astros shortstop Jeremy Pena, and he took care of that for us. It was unbelievable.
yeah. Because what he did was amazing. I was truly happy for him. Like, of course, I was hoping to see J Rod go a little bit further, but I was glad he got a taste.
Hmm.
But I was so
Oh,
happy with Jeremy Pena because he was probably playing with such a chip on his shoulder. The whole Carlos Correa replacement. I got to do what I got to do. And you know what? It worked out because now Carlos Correa is back
yeah,
with the Twins, which is weird, but now
very.
I've said it. I said it. I believe after the World Series, I put out an episode where Jeremy Pena, I think, is going to get paid either in the offseason leading to it or
Ah,
early in the season. I called it. I think he's going to get paid. And if they don't,
I
I'll oof, but I think he will get paid.
I like it. I like it because that trajectory is on a very serious incline right now, and this might be the opportunity to go ahead and lock him in. Because if he continues to do this over and over again, woo-wee, yeah,
Yeah.
he's gonna get broke off something fierce. J-Rod, by the way, keep an eye on that dude this season. He is legit.
That
That guy
that dude's
that
crazy.
guy is frighteningly good.
One and then I did say too, I was like, J Rod is already a name. He's a household name in the baseball world.
Yep,
But
he better be.
I'm not saying it to jinx him in any way. It was just a fear. I don't want him to turn into a Cody Bellinger, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like,
I no, I got you.
right. Like, I don't want him to turn into that. Just please, just stay on stay on this track and he'll be amazing for Seattle. I just
Yeah,
hope it
find
doesn't
out a
happen.
little bit about that character when he because he's gonna have that slump, but find
Oh
out
yeah.
that character and see if he bounces back because he's yeah, I'm with you. He's generational talent that, Seattle's got a hold of, and it's gonna be really interesting to see if he can maximize that potential and do something.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think Seattle and Houston will probably meet again, maybe this year for the
I
postseason.
think you're right.
I think they will. They'll meet again. Hopefully, Seattle puts up. No, they put up a fight, but an even stronger fight. Not better fight, stronger fight. We'll see how that turns out.
No, they'll put up a fight. They put up a fight this season, and talking to a lot of Astro, staff, players, personnel, everybody around it, we all felt if they could get past Seattle in that first round of the 2022 ALDS, it wouldn't be easy, but it would definitely be a sigh of relief that they got past them because they know Seattle's, they're coming.
Yeah. But I believe that's all I have. Geoff Blum, thank you very much. And then just real quick, I want to give you're part of the broadcast team and Houston Astros fan, but if you let everybody, whoever you talk to, know in that front office or whatever, thank you for sweeping the Yankees during the divisional
I'll,
series. I appreciate
I'll
that
pass that along.
very, very
I'll pass that
much
along.
because we want Houston. Shut up. All right, whatever. But thank you
Careful what you wish for.
very much for sweeping them because that was incredible to watch on TV. I loved it. I loved every bit of it. I did.
I'll gladly pass that along.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you hopping on to We Watch We Collect. Um, hopefully, maybe later on in after the season, postseason, see if you guys get your third ring in under 10 years. Who knows? We'll see if that could happen.
Woo.
But I'd love to have you back on if possible.
Yeah, hey, you got my contact info. Let me know. It was a good time.
Sweet, man. Well, thank you again, Geoff Blum. For everyone listening, thank you. And thank you to Believe Podcast Network. Stay watching, stay collecting, and I will catch you guys in the next one.